listening to the Marketing Personalities Podcast, a podcast for growth-minded entrepreneurs that serves up valuable insight and interviews about aligning your marketing strategy with your personality type. Because here's the deal. You shouldn't have to feel fake and salesy in order to grow your business. And you no longer have to. Your marketing strategy can feel good to implement and it can work. You can attract the right clients and customers to your business and grow your profits, all while staying true to who you naturally are. So in the name of honest business growth, bring your unique talents, perspectives, and personality to the table. And join us on this week's podcast episode to discover marketing that feels good for you. Welcome back to another episode of the Marketing Personalities Podcast. I'm Brit Kolo, and I'm here today with Cara Rice, who is a business and mindset coach for Introverted Coaches. Cara, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So Cara and I are here today to discuss what it's like to be an introverted coach. I know that there are a lot of coaches out there listening to this right now. And really, anytime you're an introvert doing business and mentoring, coaching, consulting, being a leader of any kind of any other human beings, there's something that happens in that role as an introvert that Cara is an expert in. And I want to have a great conversation with her about that. So the introverted coaches and just overall introverted business owners out there can glean some wisdom and maybe even some really tangible takeaways from our conversation. So we will dig into that. First, let's get to know Cara. So Cara, what's up? What's going on in your world? Tell us about your businesses, because you just told me there's kind of two things going on right now in your company. So tell us what you do.
Yes. So primarily I am a business and mindset coach, like you said, for Introverted Coaches, but I did not start as a business coach. So I actually started my business in 2000. Well, if we really go back to the beginning, it was 2013. And I started my online coaching business as a health coach and nutritionist after a decade in advertising. So it was quite a different space for me to be in. And the big realization I had at that time was, holy crap, I need to be a brand. I am no longer representing businesses and other brands. I myself am a brand. And that was a huge aha for me. And as an introvert, that was terrifying. So my first year in business in 2013, going into 2014, it was a total flop. I did not put myself out there. I was hiding behind this business guise. I had all the different company names. I was not using my own name. I was Nutritionista Living. I was NutriCare Consulting. I had all the business names and was really not putting my face and my own message forward. So needless to say, it flopped and I ended up back in advertising with my tail between my legs. Funnily enough, back in my same cubicle with the cat sticker on my phone. So it was a very humbling experience, but I did get it up the second time around in 2015. Started taking on nutrition and health coaching clients and doing really well with it. And I was able to transition out of that advertising job again for the second time, this time succeeding. And in that process, I had other health coaches and nutritionists and even life coaches reaching out to me saying, you know, I love what you've done with sharing your story, sharing your health story and really putting yourself out there and being visible and all the things. And they wanted my mentorship around it. And very quickly, my business morphed into business mentorship for nutritionists, health coaches, and life coaches. And a big part of that was in sharing my health story. So as an introvert, that was terrifying for me in the beginning. But what I noticed is once I took the business hat off and stopped hiding behind my business name and becoming a real person and connecting with people, that is when my business took off. So I started mentoring other health coaches, nutritionists, life coaches to do the same. And, you know, in the span of about 18 months, I transitioned completely into business coaching. And then something something else started transpiring over the next year or so is I was mentoring other types of coaches. So I had relationship coaches coming to me, real estate coaches, leadership coaches, and then other types of consultants as well. So biz strategists, like social media experts, stylists, all sorts of different types of consultants coming to me and really wanting my mentorship on getting visible, getting fully booked, putting their stories out there. And that's how I landed on coaching introverts, because the common thread about 6 months ago, I was like, okay, well, my audience has shifted here. It's not just those in the wellness space. What is the common thread between all of these different types of coaches and consultants coming to me? And the one glaring common thread was introversion. And I'd say about 90% of my clients in the last 5 years, regardless of, whether I was coaching on health or business, they were all introverts. So I was like, aha, I have something here. So for the past about 6 to 9 months now, I've been exclusively coaching introverts, and it has been so fun. And this is why I love your brand and your podcast so much, because in this process, I started diving into the Myers-Briggs personality types and just fell in love with it. And also in this last 6 months, I did my master practitioner certification in NLP and hypnotherapy. And a big part of that is really understanding the personality types. So that's how I got to where I am today.
It's so rare to speak with someone who's open about the fact that the first time they tried this whole entrepreneurial business thing and they left their job and it didn't work out. This happens a lot more, I think, than we realize.
Mm-hmm.
It could be very easily labeled failure. And I'm sure that's what it felt like in the moment. So this is an interesting thing that you have that as part of your story. And then you kept trying, and the second time it actually worked. And it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, the first time you went out with your knowledge and your expertise in the wellness. And the second time you went out, not just with your knowledge, but with your personal story.
Exactly. That was hands down the game changer for me. It changed everything for me. And of course, it required a lot of vulnerability. It felt embarrassing the first time around to have, launched my business and then disappear and go back to advertising. But when I came out the second time, I actually included that as part of my story. So yes, I was sharing my health story because at that time I was health coaching, but I did come back out and really share the journey. And I feel like that piece of vulnerability and being a real person and speaking human to human instead of business to human was the game changer for me. And that's what I help with my clients with now, because that is the thing. I mean, we're in a day and age where we want that connection. We want to feel understood. And, if you're listening to this and you are a coach or a consultant, being a real human and sharing your experience is going to be the thing that has your potential clients saying, hey, yes, he has, they have the credibility here. They have the skills, they have the know-how. But in addition to that, they're a real human and they actually understand what I'm going through. I want to work with them over this other person who's just, giving me the tips and the tools and their knowledge. I want to work with the person that has that and has the same, if not a similar journey as me, and they get what I'm going through.
Yeah. And share with us what your specific personality type is so we can get an even more focused view on how this might be operating for you.
Yes. So I am an INFP and I've done the test probably about 10 times just to make sure. And I am absolutely hands down an INFP. The funny thing is when I did work in advertising, I was in a project management role. So I was sort of forced to function as a J, but I am definitely a P. And I'm sure you're going to tell me all the things about that. But yeah, and I really, really identify with it for sure.
Yeah, that's really funny because for INFPs, I actually recommend to INFPs to, if they can, stay away from managing a lot of people, and because that can be overwhelming. And it's funny that was the role that you found yourself in.
Yeah.
And that's not uncommon for people to realize that, oh, wow, like somehow I found myself in a place that was almost opposite of what really actually comes natural. And I don't know if that's a paying attention to what you want to improve on and just like going for that. I don't know what that is, but that's interesting. It's not the first time I've heard that. So I've spoken with a couple INFPs on the podcast so far. The one that's standing out to me right now as I relate it to your story is my conversation with Jenny Bremer of Remembered Practice. She is a holistic counselor, and very much a commonality that I see between your two stories here is when you become open to sharing the real stuff, the past story, the current present moment story of like what's going on right now. I think it's partly that you're a deep intuitive feeler, right? And so you go to depths within your experiences that other people don't. And then you have this unique ability to communicate that, not in a boisterous way, not at all in a braggy way, but just an honest, true, pure communication style that I can tell you right now, a lot of people, most other personality types don't have. So I see that kind of commonality, and I wonder if that resonates with you.
Absolutely. And it's the thing. So going back to my health journey, it's funny that you mentioned that INFPs shouldn't be managing people. And I was in that role. I was a project manager. I was not only managing the clients, but I was managing like the team, the design team. And it burnt me out so bad. And that is actually a big part of my health story is I suffered from like stage 3 adrenal fatigue. I was in and out of the hospital. I was clearly working in a job that was not meant for me. But this piece about me going to the depths of my story and finding the lessons, and really I do have that gift of being able to tell stories and teach in metaphors. And that is something that I really, really help my clients with, because not a lot of my clients have that ability to do that. But when they learn how to do that, it does change their business, and they connect with their ideal clients on such an emotional level. And like you said, not a braggy way. And it's not in a like a journal kind of way. Like I don't recommend my clients share what they're going through in the moment, but rather when they're on the other side of it, what can they share as a teaching moment for their ideal clients? What did they learn from the experience? And my clients often ask, okay, well, how do I know I'm ready to share this? How do I know I'm on the other side of it? And I always say, when you are grateful for the experience, whatever it was, when you can look back at the experience and say, I am so grateful that this happened, or I'm so grateful for this lesson. And you can then use that as a teaching moment for your ideal clients, because typically your ideal clients are those who are just a few steps behind you on a similar journey. Then that's when you know you're on the other side of it. That's when you know you're ready to share it. And yeah, I bang on. Like that's exactly my thing.
Yeah, tell me more. You just piqued my interest. Tell me more about the teaching in metaphors or coaching in metaphors. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So something I teach my clients about is the art of storytelling. I call it the art of connection. And really, I have them get super clear, because most of my clients are coaches. I mean, I do have consultants, but most of them are coaches. So they are selling a transformation, right? So I have them piece together their journey and find that A to B transformation on their own timeline that they are then going to go help someone else with. And in that, they're using their own story. But what I remind them is, even though they're sharing their own story, and like there's tangible pieces to that story, and they're going to give examples of it, ideal clients are hearing, and what their audience are hearing is not even their story. They're hearing their own story, but in metaphors from your story, if that makes sense.
Totally.
So I always say, like, it's not about you. So for my clients who obviously are introverts, they're like, yeah, I don't want to share my story. It's so scary. I don't want to put it out there. I'm like, it's not actually about you. You're sharing your story, but it's just a metaphor for your ideal client. And when they understand that concept, then they're more inclined to go share their story as an act of service and when they do that, then it doesn't become about them, and it's not about bragging. It's not about like being in drama and being like, oh my God, this happened to me. It's actually being of service to someone else who needs to hear it, because your ideal clients want to see themselves in you. And if you can share your story and say, hey, I'm on the other side of this, or I'm on my way to being on the other side of this, it shows your ideal clients what's possible for them too.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. I think that was your nugget, introverts who are listening right now. And I would argue, I mean, I've been saying this, these interviews this month are all with introverts for introverts. And as always, there are always nuggets that are going to apply to extroverts as well. And as someone who identifies more as an extrovert than an introvert, although, man, I definitely have some introverted days, but I see that the power in recognizing the metaphor to pull that introvert out of their maybe that fear place of like, oh, but I don't want to be judged by this, right? So the introvert is more sensitive to external stimuli than an extrovert is. And so when the introvert feels like they have to quote unquote put themselves out there. I literally hate that phrase so much, but it's, you know what I mean? Like everybody knows what it means. And so I'll use it, but like putting themselves out there means that they're opening themselves up to external stimuli. And they're already more sensitive to that than extroverts are. So already any kind of external stimuli, external judgment, external shame, external response that they didn't expect, external reactions from people that kind of came out of nowhere, right? Like that is felt, I think, by most introverts more than that's felt by extroverts. And that can be a very scary place to be. I think the nugget here that you just gave us, Cara, is that really when you're communicating and you're quote unquote putting yourself out there and you're sharing your story, it might feel like it's about you. And maybe on the surface level it is, but really it's not about you at all. I know for sure I've done it. We've all done it. We've sat in an audience before, or even sat, in our cars listening to a podcast episode and hearing someone else's story. And sure, the story is about them, but while we're listening to it, our brains, because we are all wired like this, our brains are constantly saying, is that like me? Is that like me? Is that like me? Is that so? Because we're trying to identify if this is like a relatable, safe story to listen to, or if it's something that just isn't worth our time. The brain is really good at preserving energy like that. So it's constantly trying to see if you can relate. And so introverts, isn't that great news? Like, isn't that such great news that everybody is, we hear it all the time, but it's so true. Everybody's thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not about you at all. And that's the same thing I say when my clients are worried about judgment, right? Or the questions. And I always say to them, that's also not about you. So if someone is judging you, that's not your stuff. It's their stuff. You've maybe just triggered something in them, but it's not actually about you. So, and of course that's a muscle you have to strengthen. I mean, to be honest, I haven't had a lot of actually, I don't know that I've ever had any negative feedback. I mean, I think sometimes people just hit the wrong button. But when you do like a Facebook Live and someone puts an angry face, like
Yeah.
at first I was upset about that, but it was probably just someone's finger slipped, right? But really, if it was an intentional angry face, like I know that's not about me at all. It's not my stuff. So I just always, what helps me and what helps my clients is to remember it's not about me. I am being of service. Like this is my job as a coach to share my story, to share what's possible, to share the outcome of what's possible, to share the outcome of my services. Because what my people are buying, they're not buying my 90-day or 6-month coaching package. They're buying the outcome, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's another thing about selling your services, because a lot of my clients have fear around that as well, not just sharing their story, but actually putting the offers out there. I always say, you are being of service. You need to let people know what's possible for them. So you have to share this. Not sharing it is a disservice, right?
Yeah, as you went through that, my mind was thinking, okay, is this applying only to introverts or a grander population?
Mm-mm.
And I feel like this is important for anyone listening, especially introverts, but I also see intuitive feelers. So anybody in the diplomat tribe that you and I are both in, Kara. And then also I think the sentinel tribe as well, who so commonly have their antennas tuned externally, like, just making sure everybody else is happy, right? That's kind of the MO of the sentinel tribe.
Yep.
And there's this boundary as entrepreneurs and even just as professionals that ultimately we are going to have to draw. And if we choose to not draw this boundary, we're going to continue to suffer. And it's that my duty here is to simply hit publish or make it available. And the judgment, the perceptions of others are literally none of my business. Like it literally has nothing to do with who I am. Not even a little bit. Like you just said that you like to think of somebody like their finger just slipped on the mad button. Like they didn't mean to do that. And I definitely that's funny to me because I've had, on Instagram stories where you have kind of like the sliding scale of things and you can like pull the little thing all the way
Yeah.
over and hands, praise hands or whatever. And sometimes like you can definitely tell that people their finger just slipped off of it too early. And so it looked like they weren't like loving what you're saying. And that's funny. And that's where my mind goes too. But then
Yeah.
it does get more serious than that. That kind of seems a little silly. But then, for instance, I have some Facebook ads running right now, and some people genuinely do not dig the marketing personality type way. Like very much do not dig it. And that's not about me at all. And
Mm-mm.
it's really not even about marketing personalities. It's about them. Right. And the stories that they have going on, not my business.
Yeah.
That's a hugely healthy boundary to make, dear listener, as you listen to us talk about this.
Yes. Applicable to everyone.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk about now kind of switching over and talking about specifically how you market your company. And I asked this in the pre interview questionnaire, and I thought that you kind of gave like the three top things, like really succinctly, that I liked. Number one, show up daily. Number two, remind people I have a service that I offer daily, and I support my clients powerfully. I think this is hugely, hugely valuable. I mean, it might seem like to anybody not thinking like this, they might think, oh, yeah, that's pretty simple. But this is so specifically INFP helpful and also I think
Yeah.
introverted helpful. So can you like break those down for me? What do you mean by show up daily? What do you mean by remind people I have a service to offer daily and support my clients powerfully? And why do you feel like that aligns with who you are?
Well, specifically as a P, I do not function well like in an over structured formula.
Mm,
So again, like when I worked as a project manager, it was very structured. It was like I had all the color coded spreadsheets. I was like scheduled every second of my day, and it never felt good. I could function like that, but it didn't feel good. And so when it came to building my own business, I started out that way. I thought, okay, I need the structures. Like I need every second of my day to be scheduled. And it just also didn't feel good, right? Probably why it didn't take off the first time around. So I really took it back a notch and thought, what is the way in which I want to work? Like I'm an entrepreneur now. Like I get to work in a way that actually works for me, for my personality, for my lifestyle, for the way my brain works, for my creativity, all of these things. And what I discovered works really well for me is to have the framework. So like to have the structure, to know my role in my business. And my number one role in my business is to serve and to also promote my services and secure new business, right? Like I also, in addition to serving my existing clients, I have to keep new clients coming into the pipeline, right? So I know those are my roles and my responsibilities. So I looked at how can I set it up in a way that actually feels good. So in terms of marketing myself, yes, I have a funnel. I've got, I have Facebook ads that drive to a lead magnet. And then I have on the thank you page, I invite them to my Facebook group, but it's like a super simple funnel. I don't have anything overly complicated. And I look like that's just, building my list, building my audience and my community sort of behind the scenes. But what I do on a daily basis is I show up. And what I mean by show up is that could look like sending a newsletter. It could look like doing a value post on Instagram with a call to action. It could be Insta stories, whatever truly I feel like that day. So that gives me that creative freedom. So I just know I have to show up daily and put myself out there daily, right? And I know we don't like that phrase, but I don't know how else to say it.
No,
yeah. But that's my number one job, right? Like I have to do that. So I decide on a daily basis, what does that look like? And then in terms of the content related to that, I can't pre-schedule content. It doesn't feel good to me. Like I want to be inspired and share content in the moment that was either an inspired download that day or that feels in alignment where my head is that day. So I usually check in right in the morning as part of my morning mindset practice is check in. And it usually only takes, because I've been practicing this for a while now, it usually only takes like 2 minutes to do this. I check in, I tap in, I do my visualization and I check in. Okay, what is the message I'm meant to share today? So then that becomes my content. Now, there are days when I don't get the download, right? Maybe I'm too much in my head and I'm just not feeling inspired. Maybe I'm tired. Like, there could be something else going on. So I've got a bank of content that I can pull from if needed, but I would so much rather let that day's content be inspired. So some days that turns into a newsletter, some days it will turn into a Facebook Live or an Instagram post, and I just I decide that day. Does that piece make sense about the showing up daily?
Yeah. And I think, again, you just gave a huge permission slip to, I think, specifically P's, perceiving types.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before, that perceiving type, they do have this craving for freedom, and to feel boxed in doesn't feel great because they want to stay open, like staying more open rather than being more discerning in any case, staying open is going to feel better. And so we've talked about before for P's, batching things ahead of time. So then they kind of preload the ability to feel free in the moment to express whatever they need to.
Yeah.
And also feeling free to batch whenever they want to as well. Cause like I've given this advice to perceiving types and they're like, yeah, but what if I wake up that day and I don't want to batch? Well, then don't. Like, do it on the day that you want to. I mean, but like preload that. And what you're saying is, okay, is it common advice to hear people say, like, schedule your social media posts ahead of time, schedule your emails ahead of time, schedule have a strategy, blah, blah. I mean, yeah, that works for me. And that probably works for all the analyst tribe. And it probably works for Jays as well, for the most part, but that might not work for you. And that's okay. That's totally all right.
Yeah. And it doesn't feel good to me at all.
Yeah.
But I do batch my days. So this is kind of going out of the showing up daily, but I think this is a nice segue here for how I actually structure my overall business is I batch the way I work. So Mondays are my mastermind days. So Mondays, I coach my 2 mastermind groups. So I have my mastermind hat on that day. Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I do my one-on-one coaching. So I've got my one-on-one coaching hat on those days. And then Thursday, Friday are my creative days. So Thursday and Friday is when typically like I will batch a lot of content for my backup, right? If I'm writing a sales page or I'm like reviewing client sales pages, anything like that, I do that on Thursday and Friday because then I can just be completely in that zone on those days. So I look at that as like working in my business. Like that's how I work in my business. But when it comes to working on my business and showing up daily, I have the framework of I got to show up Monday through Friday. And I also usually show up on the weekend as well. It doesn't take that long. I'm talking like 10 minutes a day of just putting myself out there. And I can decide on those days what time I do that, right? So it's not like every single day I have to show up at 10 because over structuring that would I'd be like, I don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. So I just know as a general idea, as a general rule, I got to show up every single day. I can decide that day what time I show up and what I want to say. And that is so freeing for me. It is a giant permission slip. And I find that funny enough, I have a lot of clients who are Ps. They love that as well. But, some people do need to schedule it, and that's okay. So I teach it both ways for my clients because obviously not everyone is like me. So if you are listening and you're a P, try this. It works really well.
Yeah.
So much freedom. But it's also not a permission slip to not show up, right? So I do have the general rule that I got to show up daily. I don't always have to be on camera. Like right now, I'm like in pajamas and I'm not on camera, and that's great. So there's flexibility in that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the second piece was put my services out daily, like let people know how I can be of service to them. So that's the other part of my job is, I gotta show up, but I also gotta tell people how to work with me because, even though I've got clients right now, I still need to be building up that pipeline, right? So I'm always letting people know how they can work with me. And some days it looks like an actual sales email where I'm telling you the nitty-gritty details of my program. Some days it might just be a PS, and some days it might be, some kind of story. I might tell a story, and in there maybe I like pepper in nuggets of like how to work with me and sharing examples of like client successes and case studies, and again telling a story and using metaphors. So in some way I am telling people how to work with me every single day, but it looks different on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm. That's an important reminder. We've talked about that on the podcast before. It's like, yeah, you're the expert. Don't forget that. Like, don't forget how important it is to remind people that this is what you offer and calling them to that action. Love that.
Yeah.
And then your third one was support my clients powerfully, which at the end of the day, I feel like is going to speak to every introvert ever. Cause it's like, it seems to me like an introvert is, being able to serve, either it's a service or a product, just improving that client experience if you're doing a service, and improving that product if you have that product, and showing up for that. Like that feels maybe like the easier part for introverts, and that I would argue that that's still very much a part of your marketing strategy. Really, it's just you showing up, serving the people that you're there to serve.
Yeah. So I always say it's kind of like there's the working in your business and then there's working on your business. So the showing up daily and promoting your services, that's working on your business. And then you still got to serve the clients that you already have, right? So you got to work in your business. And part of this, so there's actually two parts to this. I think the most important part so that you can show up for your clients powerfully is that you show up for yourself powerfully first. So I have a rule that I do not do any coaching sessions before 11 a.m. And that doesn't mean I sleep till like 10:45. I'm usually up at 7, but I have tons of white space in the morning so I can take care of me. White space is a big part of this. And in that, I mean, it's like unstructured time. So from 7 to 11, I've got 4 hours of white space. So, and again, this may look differently, each morning, but in that space, I'm doing my mindset work. I'm reading. Some days I might actually be doing work if I feel like it. Could look like going to the gym. It's taking care of me, because when I am taken care of and my energy is right, at 11, when I hop on my coaching calls, I can then show up for my clients and hold space for them if I've taken care of myself. And so that's one part of it, is taking care of me. And then showing up powerfully for my clients also means being on top of my coaching skills, being in the work myself. So not only coaching my clients, but being coached myself. So behind the scenes, like I'm always working with coaches and mentors. I'm always learning new skills and techniques. I'm always working through my own stuff so that it's cleared, so that on a coaching session, I can energetically hold space for my clients' transformations. So that altogether, I count as showing up powerfully for my clients. And as a result of that, my clients get incredible results, and they themselves are referring other people to me. So, I mean, my marketing efforts are truly like minimal because the results are doing the work for me.
Hmm. Well, and it sounds because you've become so intentional, and it's so clear that you've done the self-awareness work that needs to be done in order to make the decisions that you've made around how you've structured this. Like it's very clear that you've gone into yourself to imagine and ask those types of questions, which I think that, those might come a little bit more naturally to intuitive feelers because we're inside all the time. Like we're internal
Yeah.
so often. So they're a bit more natural to ask, I think. But whether it comes naturally to you or not, it's just the fact that, you left your job to start this thing and you were willing to go and ask the questions like, okay, well, what will this look like for me now? Because I don't have all the rules that I used to have. It's so funny how so many people, whether they've been in business for themselves for 10 minutes or 10 years or longer than that, sometimes what we learned back in our corporate days or even when we were in school, we just think that that's how we have to continue operating. And it sounds like to me, you just simply don't do that. And that is great for your personality. More power to you.
Yeah.
Because that's how I do my stuff too. But I love to hear how other people are doing that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it took a while to figure out because at first I was like, okay, well, I'm going to, I got to be serious about this. I'm going to it's going to be 9 to 5 hours of operation. And I was trying to do these. And again, keeping in mind my health situation, I've come like really far in healing my adrenals. I think it's an ongoing thing. It's maintenance mode for life. But I had to be really mindful of this, of giving myself that space in the morning because I was previously functioning in a way, like when I was working in advertising, I was functioning in a way where I was rushing to get out the door, rushing to commute to get to the office, rushing to meetings, always being late for meetings. So I was constantly running on adrenaline and my cortisol was like through the roof and I burnt myself out that way. And so like it didn't even occur to me at first that I didn't have to start my day at 9. So here I was like, getting my health coaching business up and running. And I was like taking clients at 9. I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? I get to create my own rules. And here I am at the time I was coaching on adrenal fatigue. And I'm like, why am I doing this? So I gave myself permission. And I do remember, there were so many days I would be sitting in that cubicle thinking, I wish I had a job that I could work from like 11 to 7. Like those are the hours that my brain works best. I'm great in the morning, like creatively. Like if I need to do some writing, I do that first thing in the morning because it's my mind's fresh and it comes out. I can't actually speak to other humans though. Like I can write, but I can't speak. And so I just gave myself permission to do that. So I have that space now in the morning to take care of me. And if I am going through a launch or I'm going through a really busy period where maybe a couple days of the week I need to sleep in to take care of myself. Like I just came out of I just hosted a retreat in LA. And during that week, not only did I have the retreat, but we had like some promo videos we were shooting for a collab that I'm in. And there was so much going on that when I came home, I just crashed. I was so burnt out. And I had to just give myself permission this past week to let myself sleep in to whenever my body wanted to wake up. So because I don't have sessions scheduled till 11 a.m., I had that flexibility. I was getting up maybe 8 or 9 this whole past week, and it's felt really good. So yeah, so if you're a P or if you're in, what would you say? Is it the intuitive type that needs the space?
Oh, I think it could be anybody. And this has been coming up a lot. It's like, well, what is that about my personality type? And I think primarily what we're talking about is the P perceiver type.
Yeah.
But I also think this could happen. This could be the case for instance, an INTJ, just for the sheer reason of the phase of life that she or he is in. And so it's like, well, if this is resonating for you, listen up, and if it's not resonating for you, that's fine. That's totally okay too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think our permission slips are like really full right now, which is great. I'm so happy about that. It's so good. And, you said something earlier and it really hit home for me. This, it sounded like an maybe something that your inner critic might tell you sometimes of like, I'm supposed to be serious about this. Like something about being serious equals the 9 to 5 and the structured schedule and the traditional, schedule that equals serious. And it's funny, I think, well, there might be a lot of things going on there, but is serious really the thing that we're going for? Let's just interrupt that pre-programming and see like, wait, am I actually aiming for serious? Like, what does serious even mean really? And then once you start asking those questions, you can choose to go in a different direction, right? Because I would bet just from talking with you today, Cara, it's like you're a vibrant human. I don't know that you necessarily need to, and you know this already, I'm just reflecting.
Yeah.
Like, I don't necessarily know that you need to be aiming for serious. Like I don't need serious, Cara. I would love like enlightened, aligned, vibrant Cara,
Yeah. And it took me some serious mindset work to actually get myself permission to do that, because I came out of a project management role. So I think, if any of you listening are in a corporate environment and you're transitioning out, or you have recently, you probably relate to this. I was really worried about what my colleagues, like my former colleagues, were going to think. Right. And also family. So when I was first getting my business going, I would have, friends and family being like, oh, so since you're not quote unquote working, can you meet for lunch today? Or, can you hop on a call? Or, hey, do you want to go shopping today? And I was a little defensive about it because I thought, wait a minute, I'm a serious business owner here. Like I'm working just because I'm not in a job, like a job. This is my job. I am working. So I think initially I felt the need to structure it in a way where other people would see that
totally
that I was an actual real business owner. But what I quickly discovered is that it didn't matter what anyone else thought. I knew, like, why not structure it in a way that works for me? And it has paid off. It really, really has paid off. So again, that comes down to, not worrying about what anyone else thinks and their judgment. And it's usually if they are criticizing you for the way you run your business and not taking you as seriously as a business owner, it's usually their own stuff, because and actually every single person that criticized me or wanted to meet me like middle of the day, they themselves weren't an entrepreneur, so they didn't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it comes down to that line that I'm always constantly saying, when you feel good, your audience feels good. And you've already demonstrated to us how you found that when you feel good, your clients feel good because they get the best Cara that they could get. And so then they get the best results that they could get. So all the way around, this has been so rich, such a rich conversation. I'm so excited to get this out to everybody. I want to make sure everybody knows where to go to find you online. So what's the website? Where can we go hang out with you?
So I have the shortest name ever. It's Cara Rice, Cararice. So you can go to cararice.com. That is my website. You can also find me on Instagram at Cara Rice Coaching. You can find me on Facebook at Cara Rice Coaching. And I also have a free Facebook group exclusively for introverted coaches and consultants called Visible and Fully Booked. And to make it super easy, it's facebook.com/groups/Cara Rice Coaching. And I would love to connect with you on any of those platforms.
Love it. Of course, we've linked to all of that in the show notes. Cara, thank you so much for being here. You have offered us so much value and so much permission, and I really appreciate it. Go check her out, everybody. She's at cararice.com. And to find a marketing strategy that feels good to you, visit marketingpersonalities.com. Listening to this episode of the Marketing Personalities Podcast. Now it's time to connect your marketing strategy to your personality type. Go to marketingpersonalities.com/MPP to download your marketing personality type full report. Use the code MPP at checkout to get $10 off. And that's a super special code for podcast listeners as a way to say thank you for being here. In your full report, you'll learn about your personality type, how it relates to the work you do, what your best marketing strategy includes so you can start implementing it right away, what your worst marketing strategy includes so you can avoid it, and so much more. Go to marketingpersonalities.com/MPP to get your full report and use the code MPP at checkout to receive $10 off your purchase. And one more thing before you skip on to the next podcast. Would you please share this episode with your entrepreneur friends who also need to feel good about their marketing strategies? Take a quick screenshot of your podcast app right now and share it out via text, Facebook, or my favorite, Instagram. Remember to tag me at Marketing Personalities in the photo so I can be sure to send you a huge high five and thank you for sharing the love. This podcast is edited and produced by the Podcast Engineers. They're pretty great, and you can find them at podcastengineers.com. That's all for now. Thanks as always for listening, and I'll catch you back here next week on the Marketing Personalities Podcast. Love ya. Bye.